Okay. Call this meeting to order at 7:05 p.m. There is no assigning of the attendance sheet. There is an approval of the minutes, I believe, from April 21st. Has everybody read, reviewed, and is there a motion?
I motion to approve the minutes from April 21st.
I second.
Okay, Lalo motions, Jonathan seconds. All in favor? Can we just type like Y's for yes and no's for no's? It's easier that way for me.
Robert, if you miscount this. I kid.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Okay, 8. Are there any no's or abstentions? Oh, Ryan, I believe you haven't voted yet.
Is he not here?
He was. Yeah, he's here.
I mean, like he's in. Like he's.
You want me to open it?
He's in the. But...
We can just count it as an abstention.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll count as an abstention. So by a vote of 8-0 to 1, the motion passes and the minutes are from April 21st are approved. Okay, we'll move into the approval of the agenda. Are there any amendments to the agenda?
Could you strike OCSC, please?
Sorry?
Could you strike?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. Strike OCSC. Thank you.
Can you also strike ISR?
Strike ISR.
Go ahead and strike CAC, please.
You can strike FAC, but I have a quick TGIF announcement.
Strike SFS.
Also, can we strike ARC?
Anything else?
Can we strike Gen Rep 1?
Okay, is there anything else? Okay, if there's nothing else, is there a motion?
I motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Okay, is there a second?
I second.
Okay, just type Y in the group chat if you are a yes. Okay, by a motion of 9-0 to 0. Oh, right, nope. Now, wait, Naomi, are you abstaining?
Yes.
Okay, sweet, thank you. Okay, by a motion of 9-0 to 1, the motion passes and the agenda is approved. Okay, we'll move into public comment. Hello, everyone. Public comment is a time for the members of the public to speak to USAC about any issues on our agenda or not on our agenda. Each public commenter shall have 2 minutes to speak one time. So this is the opportunity for the public to speak on any issues. All we ask is that you're respectful and respectful of people's time. So with that, we can use the raising hand feature, or you can just type a 1 in the group chat if you would like to speak. Okay, I see Joseph's hand.
Hey everyone, my name is Joseph and I'm a first year political science and Russian studies double major. I'm the CalPERG campus relations intern on the Affordable Textbooks campaign. As you all know, CalPERG is a statewide student organization at 8 UCs that works to protect the environment, support basic needs, and get out the youth vote. Our campaign is working to make textbooks more affordable and accessible by encouraging the use of open resources at UCLA and a UC-wide open textbook grant program. Our goal is for the UC Regents to follow the lead of UCLA and introduce a grant program for all UC professors who make the switch to open resources. Right now, COVID-19 has affected accessibility for students, and now it's even more important that students have easy access to their course materials. We also wanted to give you all a quick update on our progress. We've been successful in meeting with North Campus professors who get to choose the course materials for their classes, and many of them have signed on for our campaign. Now we want to expand to getting departments in South Campus to sign on of open resources. This Friday, we're also having our social media blitz day of action to show the region's unified student support for affordable and open textbooks. We emailed you all earlier inviting you and members of your office to participate so we can show that grassroots support remotely. We're going to be posting on our social media about why we care about affordable textbooks and tagging our friends to do the same so we can get maximum student support to show the regions. And we would love for your help on this. Good luck with the upcoming elections and midterms. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I see Prob.
Hey guys, it's me. Usually I make a public comment for CalPERG, but I wanted to make this public comment about UCLA Transportation's Brew and Access van. I'm, also a driver for UCLA Transportation. I drive that van that used to be with CAE. Obviously not driving right now because we're remote. This is a public comment that I've been wanting to make for a while. I've interacted with a lot of students who are my friends, on that van, and they all have disabilities, and I've realized that they really do not have a space where they can have their concerns heard. And with that van, we only had one van up until this year. The second van had to pull funding from the transportation side, and that was really difficult. I know they applied for something through, I think it's called SFAC, but they didn't get it. I just think I'm just bringing this up because I think it's really important to remember that there are students with disabilities and they need to get to class. And I know we're remote, but that's just something we should keep in mind, especially going into next year. A lot of students, I can't even imagine how many students are not able to attend university just because we don't have the resources for them to get to class. But yeah, this is just, Lily, I know. But just wanted to bring it up one more time because it is something that I think should be on people's radar and we shouldn't forget about that population. But that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Prob. Okay. Anybody else for public comment? Anyone? Okay, final call. Okay, then we will conclude public comment at 7:13 p.m. Next up on the agenda, we'll move to our contingency allocations. So capital contingency.
Oh yeah, sorry. David couldn't make it today, so I'm going to be standing in for him. But this week we had 2 applications and there was a total of $660 requested, and we recommended 644 to non-USAC entities, and then there were no capital contingency applications.
Thank you. So no capital contingency. So is there a motion for contingency?
Shoot, I lost them out. Give me a sec. There it is. I motion to allocate. It's loading. I'm sorry. And it was all non-USAC entities, right?
Yes,
Okay.
it was 644, I believe.
Okay.
That was recommended.
Okay, I motion to allocate $644 to non-USAC entities.
I second.
Okay, just type in the chat again if you are a yes.
Are you gonna be able to keep track when it?
Yeah, because Naomi abstained last, so.
Okay.
Just give it a few seconds, Robert.
Maybe like when it's done, put like an end so you know where the vote.
Yeah, I'm going to. I try to rush the votes. One sec. Timeliness. Okay, ready?
Sorry, what are we voting on one more time? My apologies.
Contingency, you're good.
Also, instead of just asking like if you vote yes, put Y, you can just say like for everyone to put in our votes.
Okay.
I don't know.
That's smart. Yeah, so they can put
Really
A and N
easier.
too. Yeah. No, I agree. There we go. Okay, so 11. There's no. I think that's everybody. So by a motion of 11 to 0, the motion passes and contingency is approved for this week. Okay, we'll move on to SWC Programming Fund. Is the SWC proxy here?
Hi, I'm
Hi.
Christina, proxy. I wasn't sure if I was supposed to strike this or not, but there was $0 requested and $0 allocated.
Okay, sweet. Thank you. Bag allocations. Is Jonna here? I don't believe Joanna's here.
Isabel, is Joanna there?
I don't think she's here, but I think she closed bag for this quarter.
Oh yeah, she did. She did.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, we can just permanently strike that for the rest of our council meetings. ASRF allocations. Naomi.
You can strike the both of mine as well.
Okay. TGIF. Lily.
Hi, we allocated this week $11,000, 10,000 of which I am happy to announce will be going to the USAC Relief Fund, the other 11,000 to a sustainable org. We actually doubled their request. They requested 500 to do $10 giveaways, but we upped it to $20 giveaways to support like basic needs and access during the pandemic. So $11,000. And we'll be allocating every Monday from now on. Like I said, rolling basis application, submit them. We'll review Monday. I'll report to you Tuesday.
Great. Thank you, Lily. We will move. So seeing as Vice Chancellor Gordon's not here yet, we will move right into the CS mini guidelines. Is Angela here?
Did we already have public comment, Robert? Sorry.
We did.
Okay, just wondering. There's one person who wanted to bring up an issue. I know our agenda isn't that long tonight, about a certain department, and it's not the only one, that is having a difficult time giving students any sort of leeway in terms of like academic, like pass, no pass, curves. Like it seems really bad.
I was actually, and I forgot about this. Instead of public comment, I'd probably prefer to add that as an agenda item, just so we don't open up public comment and like the domino effect. So I'd rather us vote to have that as a discussion item added to the agenda. If that's okay with you, Brandon.
It's part of the agenda item underneath bylaw changes.
Okay, so can we do it as that instead? Can we discuss it then instead of having it be a form of public comment?
Sure. I can ask him to just send me something then.
Okay, that'd be helpful. Thank you. Okay, so sorry, back to CS mini guidelines. Is Angela here or is somebody here for the CS mini guidelines?
I don't see her, but I just texted her, so I'll let you know.
Okay, then we will. And then Lalo, are we waiting for Vice Chancellor Gordon for?
Yeah, we'll wait for VC Gordon.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, then we will move right into officer reports then. So my officer report is somewhat moderately long. So I had my meeting with UC President Napolitano last week with the rest of our council of presidents. As I mentioned, it's our last one for the quarter. Some of us have already transitioned office, others have not. It was a pretty productive meeting. We discussed a lot about student fees, what's going on at the UCOP level regarding fees. At the time, obviously, there was limited changes. They were discussing it, but she didn't really go into detail as far as what that entailed, like what they're doing for fees in the future. We discussed fall quarter. Fall quarter has not yet been something that's decided. The way that it's going to work is on a campus by campus basis. So the UC Office of the President will issue guidance to each individual campus on how they should make a decision, and then ultimately the chancellor will make a decision. So that was the main discussion. We also discussed referenda and referenda thresholds As you all know, across the UCs, referenda thresholds have varied. Some have been as low as 10%. Actually, some have been as low as 8%. Others have stayed the same. So we discussed that and just asked what her opinion was on it. And she said that she was of the opinion that she will lower referenda if it's the thresholds, if it's the recommendation of the chancellor to do so, and it's not unreasonable. So it was a really productive meeting. We also talked about transparency on campus with basic needs. Obviously, that's something our council's addressed, and she seemed really invested in that conversation too. I also had a meeting with Vice Chancellor Gordon as my weekly meeting. This past week, we focused on the Black Resource Center. I invited Alex Davis, the chair of the African Student Union, to my meeting, and we had a really productive conversation about if CUB passes, what does administration support look like, given that they haven't been able to support in the way that CUB is supporting, the community and the resource center. So that was a really productive conversation. We also had a conversation about the threshold, which is still something that's being deliberated. So hang tight on that. We should get guidance back by the end of the week. The last meeting that I have to talk about is the meeting with the chancellor. That was also a meeting where we talked about referenda and the threshold. That is also something that he's sending guidance up and recommendations up to UCOP still. So by the end of the week, we should have an answer, a final answer on what the threshold will be. So please hang tight on that. I discussed a little bit about CalPERC with the chancellor, fall quarter planning. Obviously, Naomi and I have both been engaged in that conversation. Naomi as the academic affairs commissioner and the academic side of things, and then me as the president. So that conversation is still happening. We're both on a task force that is actively discussing what's going to happen over the summer and for fall quarter. Other than that, the office is really starting the process of transitioning, trying to make sure everything's ready to go. Trying to still talk to Jessica and Roy about Blue Books and Scantrons for the future, and then just making sure that our work is all documented from the Office of the President so that whoever takes this office next year will be able to have a proper transition. The last thing is with CalPERC. We're actively trying to get administration to expedite the process of their new contract for lowering the threshold for their signatures to opt in to paying the fee for CalPERC. We should hear back from that in the next 2 weeks. So be on the lookout for that. That's all from me, IVP.
Cool. So I'm planning to have a meeting with Vice Chancellor Beck in order to just like figure out the logistics of the Public Safety Advisory Council that we were all talking about during Campus Safety Alliance meeting, and that we were hoping to launch by the end of the quarter. So just like giving him like suggestions and guidelines on how to kind of like choose which students are going to be a part of that, and like what would that committee look like. And aside from that, I'm also gonna add like I plan to add bylaw changes to Campus Safety Alliance next week so that there's a democratic process of choosing which Campus Safety Alliance appointee would be sitting at the Public Safety Advisory Council. And then IVP Girl Committee are compiling different volunteer opportunities, and that's been posted in all of our social media pages. And then lastly, just like what Robert said, making sure that the office is ready to transition out, compiling my transition binder on whoever is going to take the IVP office. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Kim. EVP, I'm assuming, sorry, is Jonna still not here? Okay, I don't think she's here still, so we'll move on to Gen Rep 2.
Hi. I think this one will be relatively short. I just wanted to say that we were looking into the descriptions for the budget line items in the expense list, and we were trying to use natural language processing to categorize them. because right now, if you wanted to ask the question of like how much money we spend on, I don't know, food, or how much money we spend on really anything, you don't really know that. The system is made more for like the administrative standpoint. But if we have good data on the descriptions, then we can use that to sort. And so we actually have that data in terms of the original rec form data for those descriptions. So we might start using those. And I also wanted to shout out about, shout out for the accountant, because he's awesome. He's, apparently in the past, that form used to be like triplicate physical copy, and they would have to like transcribe it in by hand. So yeah, just shout out to him. And I think that's all for now.
Thank you. Gen Rep 3.
Hi everyone. Nice to see you all on this call tonight. Basically, I've been meeting with some of our local community leaders to further advance like our efforts to help students and businesses get through COVID-19. We are going to have a few more. A couple of other places have already signed on. I'll wait to announce them until like the details are finalized. Yeah, thank you so much for like all your support on this initiative.
Thank you. AAC.
Hi everyone. I'll try to keep it short, and I also apologize for the noise because I'm picking up tacos. But I also just wanted to address that, like Robert had mentioned, we're sitting on a fall planning. Well, we're calling it the Future Planning Task Force to really talk about, the future of UCLA, but specifically session C and of course fall quarter as well. No decisions have been made, but everyone should have already received a Bruin post that went out tonight. Just letting everybody know about the planning task force. It's led by Ron Brookmeyer, and he's one of the directors of the public health school. So he's an expert in his field, and we're sitting on that committee or that task force with lots of other folks from across campus, lots of vice chancellors and deans, and of course the academic senate representation as well. So if you guys have any questions there, please let us know. If you have anything or if any reporters or Daily Bruin reporters want more information, I can send you the contact to specific UCLA reps who are really handling the press when it comes to the task force. So yeah, I know y'all saw that Berkeley planned to go online in the fall. So again, those are just things that we're all just being very aware of. My chief of staff also got to sit on the CARES Act Fund committee, but I'll let like Millen and other folks talk about that too, just because I wasn't able to be there at that meeting. And we've also been processing our Books for Bruins funding. Thankfully, we finally got all of the funds into all of our accounts. And unfortunately, we were just notified that you can only do $2,000 a day through Zelle. So we are backed up a little with the Books for Bruins scholarships. Visa, for some reason, also canceled their online processes as well. So we're going to try to accommodate those students who are also needing or in need of those Visa cards too. So if y'all know anybody who's been patiently waiting, tell them to shoot me an email. I've been letting the emails kind of just like trickle in, and then I respond to them kind of all at once. We are managing 767 applications, so it is a lot. So yeah, just tell everybody that we appreciate their patience and we're really working to get them their subsidies. And then lastly, at our academic senate meeting, we were fortunately able to pass a resolution for the academic senate, and we talked about course syllabus recommendations and adding course reserves and explanations of course reserves to course syllabi. And then also we're going to be working with the registrar office and student affairs information and technology office to talk about creating a cost of materials icon system that we've been really looking into within AAC. So we're really excited about that. We have a meeting with ASUCLA as well to talk about textbook best practices, and those will all be taking place next week. That's it.
Thank you. Okay, Vice Chancellor Gordon, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes. I know you only have a short period of time, so we don't want to keep you waiting.
Okay.
Are you good to go, or should we give you a minute? I know you just joined, so.
No. Yeah, I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay, then I'm going to hand it off to Lalo, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, hi, Vice Chancellor Gordon. Thanks for joining us on such short notice. I guess I want to just get like right into it. I know a discussion we had with ABC DeLuca 2 weeks ago. We were kind of discussing like if there was like a violation of like the SOUs for both the CRC and the SIOC. And it seemed like there was like not really a conclusive answer given. So I wanted to ask you, basically like if you feel like there has been like a violation, like not even necessarily like on anyone or anything, but just like if you feel like those violations have occurred, because at least us like as council members have definitely felt that like there has been like violations of the SOUs.
Right. Yeah, so Lalo, what I would say is similar to what I said when I met with the mother organizations on this issue. As I looked at the information that was provided to me, I think it's inconclusive in terms of whether a violation has occurred. I think what's clear is that not just this USAC, but other USACs have felt as though they haven't received all the information that they should be receiving, and that maybe things haven't been proceeding the way they're supposed to. And so what I said to the mother org group, which is what I'll say here, is that I'm actually much more interested in how we move forward on this. I know that ABC DeLuca didn't just come, but also provided information to USAC. I know that there were also follow-up questions, Lalo, from you and others about that information. And so I'm actually very interested in moving forward and making sure that we're providing information in ways that USAC feels is appropriate, that we are living up to not just the intent of, but the specific language. By the way, can everyone still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. My internet has been acting up on me today. So, but making sure that we're living up not just to the intent, but the actual words of the SOUs. And so, Lalo, that's where I've spent a lot of time in making sure that we're doing that going forward. It feels as though we're moving in a positive direction. So I've had some conversations with Robert about what's been provided. I've also talked to him about issues and concerns that have come up from USAC. We're trying to make sure that we're taking all of that into account as we think about moving forward. But Lalo, probably not the answer you want, but I'm much more focused on how we move forward on this.
Lalo, do you want to respond, or I can also?
Go ahead. I'll go after you.
Yeah. First of all, thank you, Vice Chancellor Gordon, for coming out tonight on short notice. We really appreciate it, and I've really appreciated working with you outside of council on this issue. One question, and I think I expressed this to you in our meeting, was I don't think council, feels as though we're in a position to want to look back and blame. I think that separately from that, though, is it can be frustrating for council members, and I would resonate with this too, as I expressed to you previously, for us to feel like there's never been an acknowledgement that just, we haven't received the budget reports, we haven't gotten the yearly presentations, we never approved of these memorandums or these memos that altered the structure of the committee and the functioning of the committees. I think that we're really trying to look for not blame, but an acknowledgement that the SOUs weren't followed. I mean, as we discussed, I think there's very clear evidence that the SOUs have not been followed in the past. The question is not who did it and why did they do it and let's get someone in trouble. It's more an acknowledgement of that because we want to move forward, as you're saying, in a positive direction where we can follow the SOUs. So I guess kind of going off what Lalo said, maybe putting it in a different direction. We, I think, also want to move forward, but I think it can be frustrating to have, other folks come in from a position of defensiveness and not acknowledging that parts of the SOU weren't followed, maybe not by who, we don't know where and when, but that they weren't followed. Is that something that you maybe would want to respond to? I know we talked about this offline.
Yeah, definitely. So the first thing I would say is I'm not coming in being defensive of this. I'm actually coming in trying to make sure that we're doing what's appropriate moving forward. I think what's difficult, Robert, as you said, so this isn't about necessarily trying to assign blame, but what's difficult is trying to interpret action, not just the literal interpretation of what's written, but then actions of individuals from the past, and then drawing a definitive conclusion based on that. So that's why I say that, you know, moving forward, what's going to be very important is that what's stated in the SOU is what we do. And I am committed to ensuring that, you know, we are following the letter of the SOU. You know, Robert and I had a conversation, and I said it's important that we get a bunch of individuals around the table, both who are including USAC, but then also members of our mother organizations and our in the SAOC CRC groups, to look at specifically what's written in the SOU, to talk about what practices may have been instituted in the past, and to make sure that we're reconciling all of the previous practices so that they are in compliance with the written part of the SOU. So this is not an intention of changing the written SOU at all. It's just to make sure that everyone agrees that the way that we proceed in our practice is compliant with the SOU. So Robert, I hear what you're saying. I don't see the utility, that it's difficult for me to see the utility of making a definitive statement that one side or another violated the SOU, because I received a lot of information. It wasn't just information that came from members of USAC when we initially looked at this issue. And I'll tell you, there are some ambiguities there. And just, I wouldn't make the statement that anyone violated the same way I wouldn't make the statement that no one did violate, right? So either way, I think the best approach at this point is to make sure going forward that the SOU is followed, and that everyone understands what the responsibilities are of all parties involved.
Okay, I have a follow-up, but I'll first go to Lily and then Lalo, if that's okay.
Sure.
I know your time is really limited, so I just kind of want to get straight to the point and ask, like, why haven't we seen those comprehensive budgets? Because we have over $1 million unaccounted for, and we as students are facing the brunt of that. We've been getting harassed and attacked about student fees missing, and that's not directed at admin, that's directed at us. So help us hold ourselves accountable.
Okay, well, going with your last part first, Lily, that's exactly what I want to do, is make sure that we're helping you hold everyone accountable. And in terms of why hadn't you seen things, I mean, it's hard for me to explain to you what did or did not happen in the past. It's making sure that going forward, if there are questions, that we're able to come in and respond to those questions very clearly, and that you're able to do so as well. It's not okay for anyone to be attacked, but I do want to make sure that we're providing information in ways where you can actually answer to your constituency about what's going on with these budgets.
Okay, Lalo, and then I'll go again.
Yeah, I think going off of that, I definitely agree that like we should have all the information we need in order to like make sure that we can answer to our constituents. I know something that ABC DeLuca brought up in like those responses in his follow-up was various memos that had been passed in the past that changed the way the committee structured. And so we kind of asked the ABC DeLuca if he could like provide us with these memos. And he said he would try to get them to us within like 2 weeks. And to this date, we have yet to receive these memos. And I think that's especially concerning because the memos that he mentioned change the way that the committee allocate things. And so from our understanding, like these memos are effectively changing the way the committee structures. So since they didn't come to USAC and they're fundamentally changing the way the committees function, they are effectively like null. So I think it's really concerning that we haven't received these because I think receiving these memos kind of is direct evidence that there has been like an like a direct contradiction to the SOU. So I think it's really for us at least, it's really pertinent that we get these memos like as soon as possible so we can like, as you said, like move forward.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, to answer that, I'll follow up directly with ABC DeLuca on that, Lalo. And the other thing I will say, and I can say this definitively, I see the SOUs as being the controlling documents. So I don't know what's written in those memos. We'd have to go back and I'll make sure I follow with ABC DeLuca. But to me, the SOU, that's the document that was signed by the students, and it was also signed by the chancellor, I want to say, or perhaps the vice chancellor of student affairs, one of my predecessors. But to me, that's the controlling document. So if there are other documents floating around, Lalo, we need to make sure that we get a hold of those to understand, again, what's been happening in practice and make sure that our practice comports with the actual language in the SOU. But I'll follow up, Lalo, on that.
So if I could ask a couple follow-ups real quick. So going off the SOUs, I think I'm just going to reiterate that I don't think we're looking for a statement in the form of the SOUs were not followed by blank. I think that we're looking for an acknowledgement by administration that the SOUs were not followed. And I mean, based off my conversation with you, Vice Chancellor Gordon, I do believe that that's a very clear answer. And I think most of us on council feel that way. And I think our frustration stems from that not being acknowledged. You know, there's direct evidence even from my terms on council, as we've talked about, the SOUs very clearly say that the budget shall be presented to council during fall quarter. They give specific dates for doing so. The year, even just last year, that budgets were never presented to council. So I understand the need to focus on moving forward, and I think we all understand that, and we do. And actually, a discussion we're going to have probably after you leave is about how we move forward as a council. I think, though, it's hard for us to come from a place of feeling like there's, I guess, good intention or recognizing where the flaws are if there's not an acknowledgement that the SOUs haven't been followed. We not saying by who, not saying who's responsible, but for whatever reason, if there's a difference in practice versus what's written on paper, the SOUs have not been followed. For Lalo's example, for the budgets, for any structural changes being and functional changes being voted on by council, those things haven't happened. And we have our minutes online. There's direct evidence that those votes have never been taken. Those budgets were not presented last year. So I think that's what we're looking for. And I think that's what I discussed with you in our meeting offline too, was not about blame, but about recognizing where the actual problems are, because I think many of us on council feel as though the problem is not with what the SOU says, it's the problem with the SOUs not being followed. So I just want to hear your thoughts on all that.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I can say this. I hear what you're saying. I can say this, and hopefully you appreciate why it's difficult for me to give a definitive statement on this. I have heard from other students, current students as well as alumni, that there were changed practices to how information was submitted to USAC that was accepted by some members of USAC in the past. Now, I'm not going to create judgment as to whether or not the veracity of what people said. That really wasn't the point of it, right? But hopefully you appreciate, because those changed practices may have occurred, and because they may have occurred with the okay of USAC, it's hard to say that something was or was not followed, right? So if a practice was changed through the acceptance of the USAC body, even if that acceptance was sort of tacit, then at this point, it's hard, Robert, for me to say definitively, yet no, they weren't followed, right? Which is why it's been so challenging for me to make that statement. Here's one thing I can say. It is obvious that there have been practices that do not fully comport with the SOU. It's obvious there have been practices. Can everyone still hear me? Okay, sorry. I'm looking for people to freeze, and that's my cue to stop talking. But anyway, it's obvious that there have been practices in the past that have not comported with the SOU. And I think that, being a lawyer by trade and being someone who used to be a contract attorney as well, that's not okay. We need to make sure that we are proceeding in ways that are consistent with the SOU, which is why I keep focusing in on moving forward, because I know that going forward, we can make sure of that. But Robert, that's probably the most I can say, right? It's hard to make the judgment that the SOUs were violated, because again, there have been statements saying that there was some form of approval for change practice. But the one thing I can say is that there have been practices that did not comport with the SOU. And so we need to make sure that going forward, everything we're doing is written in the SOU, right? If USAC feels that a process should be changed, right, or if there is a question about how a process changes, that needs to go through the formalized approval process that's currently written in the SOU. Otherwise, we shouldn't be doing it. So that's what I'm very interested in trying to move toward doing, Robert. And I don't know if I answered your question, but that's all I can sort of offer on that one.
No, I mean, I appreciate that answer, and I think that's somewhat what we were looking for to some extent. Just so you know, before I call on Lalo, multiple of us on council have looked back at every single council meeting that's published online since 2001, I think, maybe two. There has never been a vote taken to change the SOUs, nor has there been a vote for the memorandums in these memos that have been drafted. So although there may have been USAC representatives to the committees that agreed with these changes, the SOUs are very clear that those changes must be brought to council. So that's just something that I know moving forward will be important because, as you mentioned, the SOU is like the standing document. But Lalo, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I was gonna say that, but also, I think since we're talking about also like moving forward, when whatever like revisiting or like whatever we do to make sure that like moving forward, these like practices that may have occurred that like didn't necessarily comply with the SOU, making sure that should that continue, or should something else happen, like something else that like ends up being in non-compliance, there being some form of accountability. Because I think right now at this point, from what I'm hearing, like there's not going to be a lot of like accountability for people that like, I don't want to direct blame anywhere because I know that's not like our intention, but like there is no accountability for anything that has occurred. And I think a lack of accountability also leads to there being a lack of like being able to move forward.
Yeah, I agree, Lalo. I think one of the people that you can certainly hold accountable is me. That SOU is signed by the Vice Chancellor of Student Affairs, I believe, and I'm sorry if I'm getting this wrong, but I know that one of the primary parties that the campus holds responsible for the SOU is the Vice Chancellor of Student Affairs, and so I'm right at the top of that list, Lalo, in terms of accountability. And so if there are things that are happening in practice that don't comport with the SOU, I think I become primarily the person that has to be held accountable for that. The other thing I would say, though, is to the point you're making about there not having been accountability, that sort of goes back to Robert's statement that you're not looking for a specific blame at this point, right? And so I would say moving forward, let's make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing under the SOU. If that doesn't happen, then I am the primary person that you've got to hold accountable. And believe me, I have no doubt that people will hold me accountable for that.
The last question I have, Vice Chancellor Gordon, this is the same question we asked Associate Vice Chancellor DeLuca. Is there a commitment from you as the SOU say that any changes that are made to the SOU, obviously I've expressed to you, and I think council has expressed to you, that we believe the SOUs are not the issue, it's the lack of compliance that is the issue. If there is any change to the SOU, as the SOU say, that will be brought to council before it's ever ratified or changed. And that's something we're just making sure that you also share that commitment with Associate Vice Chancellor DeLuca.
I definitely do. There's a whole process that's written out in the SOUs of what needs to happen to the extent there are any modifications to the agreement. And so I hold the commitment that we're going to honor the process.
Okay, I appreciate that. I know that you're on a time crunch, so are there any last minute questions for Vice Chancellor Gordon? Anyone?
I guess my last question, can I go?
Go ahead, Naomi.
I guess my last question is, when are we going to see those budgets? And I think Robert was alluding to like timelines. Like there have been several times where we've given a specific date and that date seems to like not be followed, and then it's pushed back 2 weeks further. And we're leaving our terms as of right now. So just wanting to know, what's that going to look like for the incoming council as well as also for the outgoing?
So I think it's two different things, Naomi. One is, I believe ABC DeLuca did provide some information, but then I've seen some emails that have gone back. I think Lalo sent ABC DeLuca an email saying that more information was necessary. I believe I saw a commitment by ABC DeLuca to make sure that we're providing additional information. So I think I can go back, Naomi, for the specific budgets now, right, to get a sense of when you'll be able to see that. But then there are the budgets that need to come to council as a part of the normal process, right? And that's, I believe, in the fall. Robert, you can correct me if I'm wrong. But we are committed to making sure that we're moving forward with the SOUs the way that we're supposed to. So I would say that for the next incoming council, they're going to see the budgets and the information as dictated by the SOU.
Thank you. And then one other thing that you were CC'd in with our letters to the committees in fall quarter is we did ask for them to publish their minutes that they already take, which we set a deadline then for January. So just so you're aware that that's something that we were also asking for and will continue to ask for moving forward, is something that if we would appreciate if you were able to look into as well.
Most certainly. And then let me ask you, with that request, is that a part of the SOU, the publish of the minutes?
Are you asking if the requirement for the minutes
Requirement,
is?
yes. Yeah, the requirement.
It's not, no. So that was
Okay.
something that we asked from council.
I see. Okay. Okay. I
Are
mean,
there
just for everyone to understand, I think it's our responsibility. You know, we're the fiduciaries of this funding, and it's our responsibility to be able to provide responses to the extent we can to the questions that you have. So that's exactly what we'll do.
No, thank you. Are there any last minute questions for Vice Chancellor Gordon? Okay, well, thank you so much, Vice Chancellor Gordon, for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. This helps a lot in terms of answering questions.
Not at all.
Following up.
Yeah, let me just say as I leave, I want to thank you all for doing this work. I know this is a very, very challenging time for all of our students. You sit in positions of leadership, and so you've got not just to worry about COVID-19, not just to worry about school and the other, and family and the other things, but you're also in positions of leadership on the campus. And so I just wanted to express for both myself as well as the Chancellor a terrific appreciation for all that you're doing, and to also just say that you as students could also be in positions where you need help, you need support, and so the same resources that you, I think, so eloquently provide to other students that exist on campus, I just want to make sure that you understand those resources are available to you as well. So thank you for all you're doing. And when I can, I'm happy to come back and answer any questions you have for me.
Thank you so much, Vice Chancellor Gordon.
Okay, have a great night.
Okay, with that, we are going to move right into our next agenda item.
Angela's back. Angela's here now.
Yeah. So Angela. So CS mini guidelines. Hi, Angela.
Everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm just going to go to our expanded deadlines because CS Mini has still decided to accept proposals for community service events for spring 20. We expected there to be less our regular applications because of COVID-19, and we've decided to expand the kinds of activities or items that we're funding. So I'm going to share my screen to show you what we have. Oh, so it says I can't screen share.
I can allow you to screen share. It's just you're lagging a little bit. So hopefully it works. Right, there you go.
If not, I can just the document should be available because I shared it with Kimberly.
I can screen share it.
Okay. Perfect. So I'm just going to go into the list of items that we're going to consider, and this is in a list according to priorities. First, we're going to be funding virtual community service program, including any fees needed to access online resources. So if any of our projects or organizations want to move their service activity online and invite these service recipients, then we will consider that our top priority to continue their service activities online. And we'll definitely ask for a plan on how they conduct virtual programming. And then second item is we'll allow projects to apply for funding, create care packages for their service recipients. So this have to be justified why their packages are needed for their service recipients and who they'll send packages to. So we decide whether or not to provide funding for these packages based on the need for who is going to receive them. And then third item is we'll allow projects to apply for funding to provide resources for community partners in assistance in the pandemic. So the idea is if clubs to work with outside partners, so organizations helping others, helping the community during this time, and they want to provide resources for them, funding, will allow them to provide it. They can provide justification on how their specific support collaboration benefit this partner and community. And then so they have applied on behalf of the partners to give justification for why the idea needed. Yes, and community focused. Fernando, could you down? Check, am I laggy? Can everyone hear me clearly?
You're a little bit broken up, but I think we can still hear you, so you're good.
Okay, speak slower. So item is fund to stock up supplies and activities. This will be on our priorities. Supply not like a critical thing now, but we want to help into the future to prepare whenever their activities resume. So we'll only approve this if able to purchase supplies and securely. And yeah, so we only on a case basis. And that's it. We were funding capital items and the unused funds will go to for the next. And I'm going to encourage the chair to apply for this again. So that's all. Question?
Are there questions for Angela? Yeah, Orion?
Would it be better to like wait till next year to buy the supplies? And how would people do the storing of the supplies?
Yeah, so definitely. Are you referring to using funds allocated for spring to and purchasing it next year, or to apply again next year?
Sorry, can you explain that again?
So we're currently having projects to apply for funds this year before the end of the academic year and have them use the funds to items this year. So are you talking about applying for funds next year and buying the items then, or using this quarter allocation next year? Do you get the difference?
Oh, well, I mean, either. It's just like, I feel like it might be difficult for people to do the storage of supplies before next year. So if there's some way that the money could maybe be dispersed to them so that they could buy the supplies, but like not have to store them right now or something.
Yeah, so we cannot, projects can't access the funds at the end of after the end of this year because money will have to go back into the accounts. That's one limitation. And then the other is when projects do apply for funding to buy supplies, they are doing it in their own capacity. So we're not forcing them to apply supplies if they don't want to, if they can't. And they have to show us that they're able to keep the item secure and able to transport it to school. If they are able to, there is an alternative to send the items to UCLA where they're going to be in Ackerman, but I've only recommended that as a last resort.
Okay, Jonathan?
Yeah, I just wanted to say also kind of in response to obviously everything Angela just said, but also just in general, for students in service orgs, storing supplies for their orgs like in their personal apartments or houses is nothing new in any sense of the matter. I don't know if you've ever been to any of our offices, but they are stuffed full of project supplies. Each project gets very, very little storage space, and those are the projects that get storage space at all on campus. So I would say most service orgs in general do have students keep some of those supplies with them personally. So this is something that wouldn't be new to a vast majority of them.
Other questions, comments? Anyone?
Oh, and what's the reason why SGA isn't accepting purchase orders?
I'm not really sure. Maybe someone else wants to talk about this, but I'm guessing it's because of logistical issues of the office being closed. Does anyone else want to add?
Yeah, I think that might be a question for Long or Irma.
Definitely hit up Irma for that. That's not Angela's job.
Any other questions for Angela? Okay, well, Angela, it's been really great to work with you this year and to see you interact with council so much. I know we all really appreciate it and really appreciate your leadership on CS Mini. So thank you for coming out tonight and continuing to communicate with us. We all really, really appreciate the relationship you built with us this year.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for everything that you do. Right.
Have a good night.
You too.
Okay. Next, Lalo, do we want to do officer reports first, or do we want to do? What are you thinking?
I say we just talk about it now while it's fresh in our minds.
Okay, cool. Then Lalo, I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, so just to recap, as y'all know, winter week 10 council meeting, we voted to release the checks to CRC and SIOC following the receipt of the budget reports that we'd been asking for since November. Obviously, we received something, but I think the general consensus among council was that they were not adequate budget reports and didn't really go extensively as to what the committees, or they didn't go extensively into the budget. So I kind of wanted to post to y'all, especially like after what BC Gordon, if we want to release the checks or like what everyone is thinking. I also wanted to ask either Roy or Jessica or anyone else from ASUCLA if we know which ones have already been sent, because I think from my understanding there were some that were already sent to the committees. So if anyone from ASUCLA knows,
yeah. So, yeah, if you'd like me to answer, this is Roy.
Yeah, go ahead. Roy.
Yeah, summer fees had arrived and were distributed, and fall fees arrived and were distributed. That was subsequent to the first budget information that was sent. At this time, we have not yet quite received, normally it's right around this time when we receive winter quarter fees. We have not quite received them yet, so we don't have them in-house. And ahead of us still are going to be spring quarter fees. That normally occurs during the summer.
Okay. Do those fees still fall under our discretion, even though it'd be going on during the summer? Or would that be next council's discretion?
So, well, that's sort of a difficult question. the authority, so I'm going to describe to you the clarity that I have, and then the disclarity that's present will be, I guess, illustrated. So, commissioners that have authority over funds, clearly, what we communicate with great clarity is, that the CEC commissioner needs to follow through with all of those disbursements, signing off on recs through the fiscal year. The challenge with council does not specifically need to vote for funds to flow to organizations listed in referenda that receive monies. And the challenge is after council is replaced by a subsequent elected council, there is no mechanism for it to take a vote, nor is that vote explicitly required in order for those funds to flow. So,
Roy,
yeah.
can you explain? Okay, so two things. So, and just to confirm, this spring budget, while technically we're out of office, it does fall under our purview. It's an issue that exists where, because we will not be in office, the next council would have to essentially make a decision on, for example, if we were to withhold spring quarter funds or allocate them on certain conditions. The next council would be the council that kind of follows through with that. Is that correct? And then the second question I have is, this seems to differ somewhat from what we've been told previously in terms of the necessity of the USAC president signing off on the releasing of the checks. And then council does have authority because, yes, we approve the budget at the beginning, but we can also modify the budget as we go. So if we vote to not release it because it's not in compliant with the referenda language, that's perfectly reasonable, at least for like a period of time until the referenda guidance is put back into place. I just want your thoughts on all of that, Roy. Sorry.
Yeah. So I don't know what contradiction you were referring to in terms of the president's authority or a requisite sort of vote, or in terms of the necessity to follow through on obligations of responsibility for funds. When the council votes authority for the overall budget, which accounts for every aspect of the budget at the beginning of the year, that sort of sets in place the authority for the funds to flow. Some of those funds are under the discretion of subsidiary authorities. And, as an example, just to get it outside of this exact, issue that we are litigating at this time, AAP, Academic Advancement Program. The funds are authorized to flow, and the referenda indicates where they flow to. So there is no subsequent vote requisite for money to flow once the authorization is in place at the beginning of the year. Now, a secondary specific vote of council to require certain things, to comply with MOUs or to comply with its perception of responsibility and proper stewardship, are a secondary layer that potentially goes on top of that, I think I really want to caution us to be very careful with that. But once you're out of office, what I think you would have to do is put in place some sort of, request of your successors that there is something that they would either need to continue your position or they could abandon your position. Again, that's the power of the election. you know, all you can really do is say, here's what we're handing over to you, here's what our guidance is, and then you're the ones who have to make these decisions.
Okay. The contradiction I was trying to not point out, the clarity I am seeking is that you're saying that once the referenda pass, it just flows with no subsequent vote of council. I'm confused by that statement because in the past, we have been told as a council that we can stop the flow of referenda fees. In fact, we voted to stop the flow of referenda fees. And we have been told that my signature is required on referenda fee, or the USAC president's signature is required on checks before they're dispersed. So I'm just making sure I understand what you're saying, that the referenda after the budget is approved just flow, but also council has a mechanism in place where if referenda either aren't being used for their purpose or aren't following their statements of understanding with USAC, they can be halted. Like, I'm confirming that
Okay,
those two
so-
things can coexist.
Okay, so one thing to be clear about is the USA president's signature is not required on any dispersals. What you have been signing are letters that communicate to entities that are receiving mandatory student fees, referenda-based fees
to report
from
to council.
USA. Yeah, you are saying, you know, we are pleased to present, council is pleased to present X amount of money. It comes from this referenda. Here's what its purpose is. We look forward to your reporting back on that usage, you know, on X, Y, and Z date. So it's a communication that just sort of sets some, you know, establishes the relationship and makes clear, you know, it's not just money out of the blue for that, you know, some entity could use to any purpose it chose, but it is money with a purpose and it is being handed over with clarity. So those letters are simply really clarity. They're not signatures on checks. Now, the other part, that council, you know, voted and expressed concern about usage or non-compliance with MOUs or the understanding of the use of fees, and therefore is requesting further information and requesting interaction and is, you know, specifically suspending a dispersal, is a extraordinary action that is not necessarily in place. I mean, if there was no concern and no expression from council, those funds could simply flow through. And generally the signatures over the FICOM chair, because all student dispersals go over a student signature, but normally those are the FICOM chair. So yeah, am I helping?
Well, I'm just making sure it's very clear that if there is a referenda fee and that fee is not being used for the purpose outlined in the referenda or is not being given to the entity of the language that's outlined in the referenda, that council has a mechanism, albeit extraordinary, to withhold those funds as we did previously until information was given or until a correction was made.
If I can chime in, if there were an action taken to withhold, it's really just delaying the funds. They can never be used for anything other than the purpose that the referenda said they were for. So they could not be used in any alternate way. Eventually, they would have to go forward to the intended unit, which would then just be receiving a larger amount of money at a later time. If the campus determines that referenda-based fees are not being, if the programs or services funded by a referenda are not being delivered, the chancellor can direct that the fee stop being collected. That's kind of the mechanism, or USAC could run a new referendum to end a fee. but it's not necessarily council's ability to say that a fee can't be collected, and you don't have discretion to use those funds for anything other than the purpose in the referenda. The question is, do you have the ability to direct ASUCLA student government accounting to delay turning over the funds until particular conditions are met? So I think that's what you're trying to
Okay, and
get some
if
clarity on.
yes, and so if I can just continue on that point, so I agree with what Dr. Geller is saying, and you know, I think what we're all trying to work towards here is that, in general, you know, I think Vice Chancellor Gordon was very clear, certainly in a moving forward stance, that MOUs govern, that there's going to be, you know, there are mechanisms to reconcile, and where there is concern from council about proper usage of fees, that what it is certainly it's proper and correct that it bring up its concerns. It is proper and correct that those concerns be spoken to, and that there has to come to some point at which, you know, the degree to which, or the manner in which it is spoken to.
I think you cut out, Roy. For everybody else, did Roy cut out?
Yeah, he did.
Okay. Lalo, do you want to chime in? I see your hands raised.
Yeah, hold up. Roy's comment threw me off a bit. Give me a second. Oh, yeah. So for Dr. Geller, I know you said they can only be delayed. Is there a time limit on how long they can be delayed?
So again, you're going to need Roy to tell you if it's even possible to direct student government accounting not to issue the checks. If it is, then it would, I mean, the money would just sit accumulating for the purpose for which it was originally intended until that check gets cut. I don't know how to say yes or no to what you're asking. It would really be a SGA practical issue.
Yeah, and am I back? I know
You're back. You're back, Roy. You're back.
I'm sorry, I've been having shaky Wi-Fi also, like Vice Chancellor Gordon. Yeah, I mean, I think I was just trying to validate that. Yes, I agree. Well, I think we all agree you cannot repurpose the money. The purpose is destined, was determined by the electorate originally, and that you bring up concerns and are able to potentially withhold.
Roy, you cut out again.
Okay, we're gonna go to Isabel, me, and then Orion.
So I guess this is really dependent on whatever Roy says when he comes back, but it's sounding more and more like withholding fees, even if we like logistically could, like what does that actually do? Because
So
like
if the fees are not delivered in a timely fashion, there are all sorts of potential practical implications. It could mean that because they don't have the resources, programs and services stop and employees stop working. I mean, it would take their leadership to tell us how long they could go and deliver the programs and services without receiving the funds.
I guess I'm just looking forward to like what is like I guess our ultimate point in withholding the fees. Like, yeah, we don't want to give money to, you know, when we don't know what's going on with it and we're never going to receive budget reports for it and stuff like that. But also, if we have to give the money anyway at some point, then why are we going to withhold it right now? Because like I don't see how that ultimately fixes anything or like solves any problem or like really does anything fruitful.
Okay, I'll go to me, Orion, and then back to Lalo. My question is, who said it? Roy, you said that we can't repurpose the money. So I think that's the concern that council has been bringing up about exactly what has happened without council's approval, is that the money has been repurposed through memos that were never approved by council in the statement of understanding. So I think, like, just to echo what you're saying, is I don't think obviously anyone intends to repurpose the money. I think the concern, though, is that the money's already been repurposed and not being sent to the committees, which is explicitly defined in the referenda language. So I think that's the concern.
And
if that, and I know we've talked about that. The other thing I just wanted to say is I agree with Isabel, is like there needs to be a way to hold referenda accountable, to make sure they're going for their purposes. And I would also want to know or ensure that doing something like this would ultimately result in that, in some sort of way. Yeah.
so if I'm still, I
yeah,
don't mean to be
you can chime
unparliamentary
in.
because I come and go.
No, you can chime in.
I mean, I believe that you're right that this mechanism, and let me know when I'm all of a sudden disappear again, of bringing pressure and asking questions and insisting on responsibility and accountability is the right mechanism. And I think everything, while there are things that have gone off track, all the actions you're taking, I think, are moving very aggressively towards getting these things firmly back onto a track. I mean, I think VC Gordon was extremely clear in his forward commitment and his conveying clearly to council that he considers himself the one accountable. That seems extremely powerful. You've been nowhere near, anything like that until this council got it to that point. So, I mean, I think you should be heartened that you are having the effect and are affecting the stewardship of these funds, quite effectively. You're still not at the goal. I acknowledge and accept, but you clearly are making, serious headway here, and I think you should be heartened by that.
Okay, thanks, Roy. Orion, and then Lalo.
So from what I remember, there were 6 checks, and they were going to be held. And then I remember a little bit earlier today, you said that the fall quarter fees have gone through. Do you mean that some of the 6 checks were paid? If we're still waiting for the winter quarter, I think you said winter quarter fees to be coming in, does that mean that everything has been given over to the office? Like, what is the status of those 6 checks? And yeah, just question for Roy, if he's still there.
Okay, can you hear me now? I think
Yeah.
I got muted. So I mean, the 6 check thing, I'll bring a different clarity. All the summer fees were received and dispersed. All of the fall fees were received and have been dispersed. We are awaiting winter quarter fees. The way they get divided up can be confusing, and I think it's not really important. Winter quarter fees we are awaiting, and normally those would be dispersed. And we are awaiting spring fees.
Wait, so you mean that so we're not withholding anything right now, is what you're saying?
Well, winter quarter fees would need to go out. So, I mean, withholding is, this thing is a continuum. There's fees constantly coming in and going out. So the council, I would say, is in a position to bring up issues and to, exercise its oversight at many points during, each quarter is one of those things. So currently we are not sitting on any fees that we have received and have not gone to the delegated authorities.
Wait, so what were the 6 checks that we were withholding?
I don't remember the 6 checks things this as a specific thing. All the fall quarter fees came in. All the fees that were destined to go to identified bodies have gone out to those bodies.
I
We
think
are
Orion's
awaiting
asking when
winter
we withheld
quarter
them.
fees. Excuse me?
Orion's, I think, asking, and correct me if I'm wrong, Orion. I think Orion's asking when we voted to withhold them, however many months ago. I think he's asking about those checks then.
Those checks have all gone out. Once AVC DeLuca sent some information, we dispersed those checks. To me, we are clear that there are checks right behind those checks, and there's checks behind those checks. And our normal facility, what was indicated was we're awaiting budget information. Budget information then came. We dispersed those checks. There's more checks coming and more dispersals coming. To get into this is all an extraordinary action that has never been taken before. It does not seem, feasible and functional to sort of get, every piece of information to the point of satisfaction of the full parliamentary body is a complicated thing, and that there are more questions. I think Lalo took lead on sending out some additional questions. I think information was asked for, information arrived. That there was more or different information that was requested than the information that was provided is completely fair in the council's authority. So then you presented that additional request for information. So that's the stage we're in now. We are in another stage where there's another set of fees coming and another set of dispersals that need to occur. So, I still think your leverage and your position as a stewardship body is still fully in place.
Okay, I see Lalo's hand.
Yeah, just to address that real quick, Roy, it's happened before. The way the CRC was created was by USAC withholding checks in order to allow funds to build over to then start the CRC. So it has happened in the past. I just want to make that.
Wait. You got to explain that more. What?
The way that the CRC was created was by USAC withholding checks that were originally being sent over to AAP. So those checks were withheld for I think 2 to 3 years, and then it built up, and then from there that funding was used to start the campus retention committee, from my understanding.
Okay, so I'm not in a position to dispute that or to confirm that. That seems like it's quite a ways back in time. What years were these?
They were first withheld in '86, and the committee was started in 1988, '89. So yeah, it is. I just wanted to say it has happened before. I just wanted to make that clear. I'm not attacking that point. I just wanted to make sure.
Sure. And I would love it if outside this parliamentary procedure, if you shared more information about that with me. I'm unaware of that.
Okay, yeah, definitely. I have a whole dissertation on it that I read. Aside from that, I think going back to Isabel's point about the practicality of it, I definitely think since it is from my understanding, it would be winter and spring fees that we would be withholding if we decide to move forward in that way. My main thing that I want to be sure of if we do decide to move over that way, is that the jobs of the students and the staff are protected and that they are not affected in any capacity. Because I think at the end of the day, we're doing this in order to ensure students are able to see where the fees are going. That's our original intent behind all this. So I really think we shouldn't do any action that also hurts students. So I just want to be very clear that if we do that, I want to make sure we have some mechanism that protects the students and their jobs in this situation.
Robert, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, Roy.
So, Lalo, I appreciate you bringing that point up. I think that really speaks to where my concern is, and my trying to be clear to USAC that this thing is in constant motion, and you know, this pressure, I think you guys have gotten a lot of interaction and a lot of commitments, and VC Gordon was really clear. And you know, where you feel you're going to, if you feel in the future that you need to continue to build more pressure, there are other fees that are going to arrive and need to be dispersed. So just because we release funds from one given quarter doesn't take out the basic relationship, which is that USAC is the elected body, the board of directors in charge of this money, and that is immutable and is unchanging ever. And so to me, the best way to make sure you don't obstruct, you know, a lot of these fees are really going to these mentors and tutors, and you know, making sure you review it, can keep the interaction robust and clear, but not unduly holding up checks. You know, I think it's good to discuss it at the proper times, but not to put unnecessarily difficult thresholds in place that are hard to work around. Again, like I say, these checks, you know, every quarter there'll be new fees that come in and have to be redispersed. So you always have this leverage point. It's not that you're going to lose it.
Okay, I saw Isabel's hand and then Brandon's. You're muted, Isabel.
Yeah. I just wanted to, I think, express a little bit more of my thoughts that I didn't express before. Like, I'm not of the opinion that like nothing should change. Like something very fundamentally needs to change between the relationship here. And I do also agree that like we do need to protect the most vulnerable who most likely are going to be hit by the withholding of funds. But I don't disagree that like withholding funds is, I think withholding funds could be a good solution here. I think it could be a good answer to what's happening, but like I reject the idea that like we don't care about the people who this is going to impact. And I also want to make very clear that when we don't know where the funds are going, that hurts students too. Like students not knowing where their money going is hurting them. So like saying like, oh, well, we either hurt students by withholding the money or like we help all students by just giving the money. Like, no, students are hurting either way. It hurts students to withhold the money and it hurts students to just release the money and not know where it goes. So like, I don't think we need to really like grapple with the issue of like, well, we're just going to release the money and then like, we're going to just say, oh, well, because like that's helping all students, because like a lot more students could be helped by knowing where the money is going and efficiently distributing money.
Thank you, Isabel. Brandon and then Naomi.
I think Isabel captured a lot of what I wanted to say. So to allow us to move forward, I'll let Naomi talk. Thank you.
Naomi?
Yeah, I also just wanted to highlight too, especially when we talk about the SIOC, these are access projects. These are resources that are going to historically underrepresented and historically underserved communities as well. And I do think that we're doing them a disservice when we don't know where $1.2 million is going, when that could free up a lot of resources. If you talk to a lot of the people outside of LA prior to college. Sorry, that's my roommate. She's watching something. But yeah, if you talk to people outside of, inside the projects, they talk about how they're severely overworked, underpaid. And, you know, I do think transparency would really help in this sense. And we you know, USAC has been grilled for months now about transparency, about student fees. And I do think that, you know, again, these aren't attacks. Isabel captured it perfectly as well. This is about, you know, accountability and also going forward, making sure that things like, you know, MOUs aren't broken. So, yeah.
Lily, and then back to Brandon.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to echo what Naomi said and Isabel. Either way, students are being hurt, and I don't appreciate that Roy moved forward with sending the checks that we voted on withholding, because we've been demanding this for a very long time, and all we're asking for is accountability that the students are asking from us. like I said to Monroe, like USAC has been getting literal attacks about our budgets and about where student fees are going. And a conversation I had with Jessica earlier this week is that being transparent is absolutely necessary in times like these when students are especially angry, because the student body could choose to get rid of those referenda that fund SIOC and CRC. They could sunset it forever. And that hurts everyone. So it's kind of like we need this transparency, or there are way bigger implications and it will hurt a majority of students.
Okay, I saw someone else's. Oh, sorry. Did someone else have their hand up? Okay. Orion?
Wait, we wouldn't be able to sunset anything until next year, right? Like
No,
in
nothing
terms,
can be placed on the ballot for this election season.
what,
No,
what was that?
it's too late to do anything this season, so it would be next spring's election that there could be a vote for a fee that at the earliest could take impact in fall of 21.
Okay. And the other thing is, I mean, we've kind of already like made a good amount of progress here. If it seems like Monroe Gordon seems willing to, you know, move forward with this stuff. So I think like if he follows through, then we don't really have too much to worry about. As long as he does follow through. So I think as long as we just like keep, you know, a little bit of pressure there, then I think we're fine.
So what do you think a little bit of pressure is?
Well, I mean, we have to decide. I think it's like a bit of a continuum where if we think that he's that, you know, stuff isn't happening, then we start withholding, and if stuff starts happening again, then we start releasing a little bit. I think you know, we don't have to hit one extreme or the other.
Well, clearly withholding has no purpose.
Well, it does have purpose. I mean, we've seen that it has worked, right?
Roy released them without withholding.
Right, but we did receive at least a basic budget. So I think like if they keep moving forward and release the full budget eventually, then you know then we've met our goal.
Okay, I see Lalo, then Isabel. And then Naomi.
Yeah. I already received something of a budget. I don't think it was substantive whatsoever. It was line items that had a dollar amount assigned to them. There was nothing to back up where that was going. Then we received a better budget that showed the differentiation between operations and project expenses. So I agree we've received something, but I definitely don't think it's what we asked for. So I mean I agree that I don't know if we necessarily have to go full on extreme, withhold everything kind of thing. I do think we have made some progress, but I definitely think there's room to make way more progress. And I definitely think we're nowhere near to like achieving what we had asked for. And I think what's especially concerning too is that sure, yeah, we may have received the budgets, but why is it that the USAC, that the not the USAC, that the committees themselves don't receive this full budget when they're first like determining the budgets? From like what's been told to me, by the appointments they only receive a part of the budget. So I really think it's important that like moving forward, even if we receive the full budget, that full budget is also sent to the committee and they're able to decide on the full budget and not just the yearly like project ones.
I really do hope that this effort that's being led against the CPO is also being led against other student fees receiving entities on campus. I don't see you all attacking AAP or any other department that uses student fees, because CPO is not the only department receiving those. So y'all tell me it's not under attack. Y'all say this and that. At the end of the day, like y'all only holding CPO to a different sort of standards when y'all not holding other departments to it. That's what clearly spells out that this is an attack towards the CPO.
Okay, Oscar, I'm sorry, but public comment has ended. We're going to have to mute people if they move forward because we have to go in an order for people who raise their hands. So, Isabel?
I forgot what I was going to say. Can you come back to me?
Yeah, that's fine.
I think I was next. I would also say too that when we're demanding like transparency and we're talking about budgets, I would really reject any notion that a little bit of pressure is going to get us the results that we want to see. If you've seen a lot of our advocacy efforts this year against administration, it hasn't been with just a little bit of pressure. We put a ton of pressure on administration. We backed up all of our requests with student testimonials, with different organizing strategies. So I would reject any notion that we just need a little bit of pressure. And again, I just want to go back to those really, really crappy budgets that were given to us and call them what they were. They were not full budgets. They don't have, and you know, Lalo pointed it out too. We don't receive any, or the committee members aren't receiving any full budgets. They're not being able to see all of the money that they're overseeing and supposed to be allocating to their communities as well. So, you know, I just really want to understand like what the issue here is and what are we going to do moving forward about it, because we've talked a lot about this, and you know, I thought at one point we were withholding checks. Now we're not. So I do think we need to talk a little bit in regards to strategy as well.
Isabel?
Were those, just before I say anything, were the budgets that were sent to us, like, is that public?
Like, are they posted? What do you mean by public?
Like, if I wanted to talk about the budgets, like, would that be like a violation of a privacy or something like that?
Shouldn't be. It's student fees.
Okay. So like for anyone listening to this or for anyone who's reading these minutes in the future, like the budgets that we received were basically like, it was like 3 years worth, and each year only was like this much of like a full page, because it was literally things like, it was like as if you were like going through your own bank account and you were like, okay, how much did I spend this month on gas for my car? And you wrote down like that number, except instead of saying gas for your car, you just wrote transportation. And transportation included like, I don't know, maybe when you got like new tires for your car and when you like got a new stereo and you got gas, but you didn't like label any of those things. You just said, okay, I spent $1,000 on transportation. Cool. And then you went and you were like, oh, okay. And then I, you know, spent $100 on things for my house. And then like you said things for your house and wrote like $100, but you didn't say like what you wrote. Like you didn't say anything specific about what you bought. That's what these budgets looked like. It was like, I don't know, 9 different titles of things, like categories of things with nothing specific underneath it. There were 2 separate lines for transportation and travel. I don't understand how that's different, but like that's concerning to me as someone who's looking at this budget and thinking like, okay, what's the difference between transportation and travel? But there's no qualification there. There's no explanation. There's no specific line item that tells me like, oh, this was travel and this was transportation, because I don't know. So like, that's why we're very frustrated with the budget reports that we received, because it's not a comprehensive budget and it doesn't actually tell us anything about where the funds went. Because like, there's no proof in any of this. There's no like actual like, oh, I can look and see that, you know, like a van was bought for this amount of money. Like there was none of that. It's just transportation and then a number. So like that's what we're talking about when we're upset about like why there is no transparency and why we don't feel like we've actually received any information about these budgets, even though a budget was sent, because like there's no specificity here.
Thank you, Orion, and then Lily.
Well, I think even on our end, I don't think our expense list is public. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that
What
list.
are you referring to?
So we have a budget which says how much money is in each like category, I guess, except the categories are based on like the administrative side of things. So it'd be like, you know, which office, which fund or whatever. But if we, let's say, bought a van, it wouldn't say that we bought a van. It would just say that we had
Every
money in
one
it.
of our programs are included in our budget.
What was
So
that?
if an office puts on a program, that's included in our budget report
Right. Right.
with the name of the program.
And funding bodies announce every week.
But if you use the funding from your office to do something, then you wouldn't see that.
Yeah, you would. Like any program that my office does. If Robert decided to go host a Succulents for Votes program, that is included in the budget under my programming expenses.
Right, but you wouldn't see like how much you spent on succulents, for example. You wouldn't know that you spent X number of dollars on succulents versus Y number of dollars on the venue.
Yeah, but I think conflating what Isabel is saying, which is literally 9 items that are called transportation, entertainment, travel, to USAC's budget that records every single program that is written down and a breakdown under it. Yes, under the succulent hypothetical, we don't know if there's 10 succulents or 20 succulents, but we know a succulent program happened. I would say those are 2 very different things, but
Also, I'll echo, SGA is very, very thorough in their reading of rec forms. They will not approve anything that is not outlined in your budget and does not apply to the fund you're trying to apply it to. So it's a very thorough process. Can I go ahead and do my turn?
Orion, do you have anything else you want to add before I give it to Lily?
I mean, I guess Lily can go.
Okay, Lily.
Can you enable share screen? I wanted to share the budget.
Okay. Yeah, how do we do that? Fernando / anyone.
She has permission.
Okay. So
Whoa. What are you sharing?
Sorry. Okay. I'm back.
Do you want me to stop?
So, no, I have the budgets up. This is what we mean by there are just such glaring unknowns. When it says materials and supplies general, $10,000. For travel and entertainment, you'll notice it's gone up from 28,000 to 50,000 and keeps going up. Services. What are services? For $100,000. This is a problem. This is not acceptable. If we showed this to the student body, they would be completely outraged. So I'm advocating for more thorough budgets because I think students have a right, and students, especially in the projects, have a right to know where their money is.
I agree. This budget is not good enough.
Okay. Joanna and then Naomi.
Well, I'm glad to hear Orion finally admitting that this is not adequate enough. I think it was blowing my mind why he would even defend those kinds of documents. But I'm glad that was said.
No, I'm not defending them. I was more just saying.
That you were defending them. I'm saying that you were saying that that budget report was okay, and we just heard you say that you are also not okay with that. So
No, I never said that those were okay. What I was
you
saying is that
did, we can go back in the minutes and we'll have the minute taker quote you on those things come next week. But I think you're honestly just confusing yourself more so than asking questions that really go into what's going on. And for the millionth time, it's not your turn to speak. Robert called to me. I don't know why you think it's okay for you to interrupt me all the freaking time. So moving on, I think, I don't know, I came into this meeting again late, but I was wondering, like, are we supposed to do a vote on this, or like what was the discussion leading to?
Let me go to Naomi first, and then Lalo, I'll hand it back to you so you can discuss about like ideas.
I also just wanted to like reiterate what was said last week when we talked a lot about this, and when Roy was going over like the extensive nature of particularly the USAC budget and how it's really ultimately used for students and it's used by students as well to be able to access and see how much of their money they have left after things are like expended or allocated. So like Orion had even mentioned that our USAC budget was like 300 pages long, and just comparing like a 300-page long budget report to a, what was it, like 6 to 10 pages long of 3 years worth of a budget, I think is really abysmal and really should be questioned.
Lalo?
My hand isn't raised.
Oh, well, I didn't want to answer the question that Joanna asked regarding proposals on moving forward.
I had stepped out because my fam stuff is going on. What was the proposal?
Oh, well, John is just asking what I think she's asking that, like what is the recommendation moving forward, or what are ideas on how to move forward?
I'm not sure at this point because I think the one thing that is causing me the most hesitancy is like how this would affect students. Like I think it's hard to move forward when like knowing that like student jobs may be impacted, but I definitely agree that we still need to put like a lot of pressure to make sure that like the requests that we have made are honored. Like I don't think pressure should be let up like whatsoever. So I think I'm just trying to find where that balance is and like what can be done. Yeah.
Other thoughts? Okay. Lalo, so are you proposing? Oh, yeah, Orion.
Well, I think the point that I was trying to make is that no, that budget is not good. However, we have made progress, and I think that we can continue to make progress, and that we don't necessarily need to go to either extreme in order to do that. Now, maybe we, if the vice chancellor is not, going to is not providing, then maybe then it's time to start holding fees again. But it seems like he's cooperating. So, and then regarding our budget, yeah, there's definite differences there. But I was not pointing out. I was not trying to say that our budget is equivalent to their budget. I was just saying that the statement about the vans is maybe not necessarily completely accurate.
I think because I know we were concerned that like it might have to be like pressing. We kind of had to make a decision today. I think something we could do, especially since Vice Chancellor Gordon did express that he wants to be held accountable, is I would feel more comfortable having that conversation with them about ensuring that student jobs are like safe and secured before moving forward with the decision. Because I mean, I know we were even talking about like what it'd be like to not release the checks until we get these budgets and all that, but like if the ones that like we would be voting on haven't even been received yet, do we have to make that decision now?
I mean, we have 2 more council meetings. Roy / Dr. Geller, I actually was meaning to ask you all this. Our council meeting, or quote unquote council meeting week 7, that's more of a transition meeting. Can we have items on the agenda then, or is the last time to have items on the agenda next week?
Assuming that J-Board is going to be swearing in the new board on Tuesday after your meeting, you can have a full meeting week 7, and then they have their first full meeting starting whatever time of night you finish.
Okay, thank you. So Lalo, I think that we have next week and the week after that to like reconcile the questions that you're asking. If you'd prefer to table it, what are your thoughts?
Personally prefer to table, especially if we do have next week. I would like outreach to like VC Gordon like right now, like send him an email like right away to try and set up a time. I know you have your weekly meetings with him, so if I could jump in for that for like 10 minutes just to ask that question, I think that'd be appreciated as well. But I mean, if we have like week 6 and 7, I definitely think we could get that answer within then.
Okay.
But obviously, if others feel different, then I mean, I'm one person.
Yeah. How does other council members feel?
I mean, yeah, I think that's fine. I don't think we're really getting anywhere right now.
Joanna, I see you muting, then unmuting, then muting.
Yeah, I would say it's fine. I think I am concerned that whatever decision is made is going to be like impacting like our transition over. I'm not necessarily too keen on ending my last formal council meeting with that kind of stuff, but I understand like the reasons why, like with Lalo being hesitant to do so. So like that's fine. I just like don't know. I feel like this is just a very urgent matter. So I don't feel like where we stand now is any different than where we're gonna stand in a week, to be honest. Like, so I think so long as like we don't have a discussion about this next week and we just like vote or whatever, like I'm fine with that. Like I don't want to have to go through like more time discussing this when like we already know what we're gonna do. Unless we don't.
Yeah, Lily.
I guess following what Joanna was saying, I would kind of like to know like the options for next steps, because right now I feel like we're kind of just stuck and it's not gonna resolve.
I see Isabel, then Orion.
Yeah, I agree with what Joanna was saying, where like, and Lily, where I would like to stop talking about this tonight, but also I genuinely don't know what I want us to do, like what I would vote for if we did move this to next week. And I just, like Lily said, like don't even know what the real options are here. Like what can we actually do to make an impact? Because like Monroe stating like, yeah, we'll be more transparent and like we'll actually follow the SOUs, and like ABC DeLuca saying the same thing, like doesn't really feel like progress, because like we're all gonna leave or like not otherwise not be on council anymore, and like there's nothing stopping them, there's no accountability from this just happening again next year when, you know, like they're gonna have new council is gonna have to start all over again. So I just want to make an actual difference with whatever we vote on doing, and I don't know what that different how we do that difference and like what option that is.
Orion?
Well, right now, what options do we have? Because we don't have funds right now to withhold to them, right? I think this is a question for Roy. Roy, are you there?
I think she stepped away for a minute. What was your question? Just what options we have?
Yeah, exactly.
I think that was her question as well, which is what options do we have?
Oh, I think Ryan's asking Roy.
Yeah, I
Oh,
was
did
just
you
trying to
guys-
get Roy to.
Did you guys hear me?
Oh, now we can hear you.
Were
Roy.
you able to hear me?
We can hear you now.
All I said was we have not yet received winter quarter fees.
So I think the question that's being asked, Roy, is can we take action on winter quarter / spring quarter fees if ASUCLA has not received them yet?
Well, there's not yet an action to take, if you can hear me right now. Which is partly what sort of I like in what Lalo is saying is that if he could try to follow up. I mean, what you guys are trying to do is get information, get commitments, and try and get things that are solidified more. And as I've tried to be clear, this keeps coming up. There's 4 times a year in which fees arrive and fees are dispersed.
Okay, any final thoughts? Can I get like some thumbs up from council members if we're good to move on? / Lalo, if you're comfortable like wanting to table it, I guess, till next week.
Yeah, I think it would help to then get like clarity from folks that we need clarity from. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Then we will table this because we do have 2 more council meetings. Okay, so next up, we're going to go back to officer reports. I believe we got through the gen reps. Did we get to AAC and CEC?
Yes, you got to me.
Okay, CEC then.
You skipped me though.
Oh, whoa, I'm sorry. The agenda is messy. Wait. Aren't you after?
They're on the same line. I'm sorry. I looked at the next. I saw academic affairs and I saw the next line. That's my bad.
Okay. We'll go to CEC then. Sorry, Jonathan.
All right. So today we had our first live stream. Sorry, it's like kind of loud in here. Today we had our first live stream of our like concert series with smaller local artists. We have another one on Thursday at 7 p.m. and then they'll be happening twice or 3 times a week going through the end of the school year. And we have on April 30th, so in 2 days, our submissions to the Short Takes Film Festival closes, and we will be awarding different prizes for the winners. Our like web development team built a platform where students can go and like interact with the videos, watch them, like vote for something, and people that vote can also like win like Amazon gift cards. Then we have on May 9th, we just confirmed we're doing a live stream event with Anthony from Queer Eye Cooking. And we're getting like the recipe beforehand to like share with students, and should be fun. He'll do like a demo on how to cook something, and then there's like a Q&A with students. I think we're gonna have 2 more speaker events and Q&As on like a Zoom webinar platform through the end of the year. And that is all that's pressing for now.
Thank you, Tara. We'll go to Jonathan.
Hello. What is new? I didn't say. I put it in the chat last week. Everyone was saying it last week, but I didn't do an officer report last week. But CSC endorsed both CUB and GCGP the referenda, and we also dispersed all of our available funds left to Books for Bruins, the USAC Relief Fund, and the SWC Relief Funds. So that's that. Otherwise, the Michaels Award, the Leadership and Service Award, just sent out the recipient information today. So we have 10 wonderful recipients out of our large and lovely pool this year. It was really difficult, kind of looking through all the responses of what our scorers saw. We had a really good pool. So really excited about that. Thank you to, I think there's like 4 of you in this Zoom that were on the committee. So I appreciate your time and efforts on that. And thank you to Robert's office for getting us those appointments for that committee as well. The ceremony for that is on Sunday at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Bob Michaels himself will be joining us. So if you are all much more than welcome to that. I'll put that flyer for that in our group chat. If anyone else is interested in joining, please reach out.
Thank you, Jonathan. We'll go to FSC. Is Millen here? I don't believe Millen's here. So we'll move to SWC. Christina, are you still here?
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, so first thing is the SWC COVID-19 Relief Award, which is $500 and application based, is open until May 2nd. So, and phase one of the basic needs subsidy had 430 applicants with around $30,000 allocated in total. And then I'll just talk about the committees a little bit. So Active Minds is hosting its first social media giveaway this week. They're asking students to answer reflection questions to be entered into their giveaway. And they're also holding weekly meetings with different mental health experts as guests. Bruin Necessities is hosting a social media giveaway this week as part of its menstruation destigmatization project. Bruin Runwalk is also holding ongoing social media challenges with giveaways. This week, they have a dancing challenge. And then SWC Earth is partnered with, or has partnered with the Renewable Energy Association and other sustainable clubs on campus for Waste Awareness Week, where they will be posting infographics on sustainable diets as well as fast fashion and the environment. And then finally, Sexperts is hosting its porn panel this Friday at 6 p.m. over Zoom. And they also have a new YouTube video up now. And that's all.
Sweet. Thank you, Christina. We'll move on to transfer student representative.
Hello. A few things. So first is that I will be at a panel on Friday for incoming transfer students. Very exciting. And then that is part of the Bruin Bound series that's happening all of May. And then TLC and my office are collaborating on a webinar for student activism and advocacy for incoming transfer students. And that's going to be May 16th. And it's also part of the Bruin Bound festivities. My last office meeting is this Friday. And we are still planning on spotlighting transfers running for office. We only know of 4. And so if you are a candidate and you are listening and you are a transfer, please, 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 like DM me right now on Zoom, your email, so we can email you. If there's only 4 transfers running for council, then I'm very sad, but it'd be like that sometimes. Other than that, I have no updates. Thank you.
Thank you, Isabel. Okay, and now that John is back, Jonna, if you're ready to go, we can do your officer report.
Yeah, so digital SLC began yesterday because today's Tuesday. I attended one of the panels today. Today's was talking about how to support undocumented students during the ongoing crisis. There were different community organizations, such as ones in the Inland Empire, and also just broad coalitions who have been working like for years now about like higher education in general, and the kind of work that they're doing to support students broadly, but also just in a nuanced manner. The digital SLC will continue through Wednesday, I believe, maybe even Thursday. The final day will conclude with like, or I think it's for the rest of this week actually. The final day includes lobbying. So if there's people who are free on Friday and want to meet with certain legislators, you can let me know. We have a couple of representatives from our district specifically. I myself will not be attending because I have a board meeting on Saturday. And we'll be doing student regent interviews / sending our final recommendations over to UCOP. So that'll be interesting, but it'll also be a very long meeting. Lastly, the Racial Justice Now grant applications are live. I posted it on our EVP Instagram and I believe Facebook. If not Facebook, I'll post it again tomorrow. But basically, if your organization does any kind of, if you're a student organization that does advocacy work related to racial justice issues, you're eligible for funding. This application is open UC wide, so you can apply to it and get a lot of funding. This funding can be used for a variety of different things, but again, you can look at the links available on the graphics, and you can feel free to ask me any questions about them, and I will direct them to the appropriate person that is overseeing the grant applications and has created this grant. This grant has been going on for a couple years now, and this is really just intended to help fund organizations that from like marginalized communities that are not used, I swear to God, that are not used, that are typically like from low income like communities and stuff like that, and so they don't have the adequate resources to like progress in their advocacy. So this is what that grant is intended for. So if you can think of any organizations that do any kind of work related to that, please direct them to the grant. Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah.
Thank you, Joanna. I believe we were at is Shama? Oh no, Shama Struckers, OCHC admin reps. We'll go. Is Jessica here first?
I'm here.
Hi, Jessica. Do you want to go first?
Hello, sure. I don't really have any updates, but I just wanted to offer to you all, if anyone's interested in doing one-on-one Zoom meetings throughout the next couple weeks with myself and Fernando, if you need help in preparing transition materials, or if you just have questions about how it's going to work turning over your office, I can set up like a doodle poll or something and send it out so that if that would be helpful for you all, we can make that available, since I know this is kind of going to be an unusual way that we transition over to the next council. So we just want to make sure that we're answering any of your questions and making sure that we're prepared for how to deal with, you know, moving out of the office and transitioning, things like that. So if you all are interested, I can send that out.
Okay, thank you, Jessica. We'll go to Dr. Geller.
I don't have anything to report this week.
Okay, great. Is Josh here? There's Josh. Josh?
Hey, good evening, everyone. I also have no updates.
Okay. Roy, do you have anything?
So I don't want to be a broken record, but yeah, no updates.
Okay.
If you can hear me.
Great. Fernando?
Yeah, one thing I do want to take this time to point out that to the council members or to the admin that's part of this meeting, if I mute you, it's most likely because there's audio feedback when someone else is speaking. So I try to be not to mute unless it's completely necessary. And I will try and send you a notification to tell you that you've been muted, so you won't speak and think you're not you're unmuted. That's it.
Okay. Thank you. Am I missing anyone? I'll go to Kim first, but I have one quick announcement. I'm going to send this in our council messenger, but there is a graphic that we made for the referendum, since council voted to endorse them, that you all have the option to share. It's just like a council graphic that announces our endorsement of the referenda. So I'm going to share that. That's my update. Kim?
Hi, yeah, just a reminder that public comment is over and that we had to shut off the chat because well, one, public comment is over, and then just for the safety and security of like all the council members and other participants that's on this chat, I just wanted to put that on the record.
Okay, thank you, Ken. I think that that's done for officer reports. We will move into new business. So we have a bylaw change for the CSC Transportation Fund, and we'll hand it to Jonathan.
Hi. Wow. It's been I was gonna say it's been a long time, but it's been a week. Um, hope everyone is well, and that you enjoy my Tiger King background. So this bylaw change should have been sent out to everyone. Does everyone have it? Yes. Grand. I'm going to assume that that's a yes. So I'm going to kind of just start of like where this original bylaw like comes from and started with, and then like where this change has come from and started with, and what it seeks to do. So this bylaw is something that currently exists. So CSC surplus is restricted surplus. So every year CSC surplus does not go into the larger pool. It goes as seen by this bylaw. It is split amongst the Robert S. Michaels Award and then the John Sarvey Award. So first off, like I was talking about in my office report, we just did that award today. The way that that award works is that we give 10 recipients a $1,000 personal scholarship, and that's called the Michaels Award. And then they also get to choose a UCLA service organization to donate $250 to, and that's the Sarvey Supplemental Group Award. So back in the day, so Bob Michaels, as I said, he's joining us on Sunday. He's very much alive, and he has been the main contributor to this award. He's the one that funds it. And so that's that's kind of why it's named after him. That's why he plays a large role in it. And he's a previous USAC president, and he's a previous student welfare commissioner. So he was a very big in USAC, etc. So his back in 2015-ish, Gene Block was matching award, basically saying that if scholarships were created, he would through the endowment that he was going to match those awards for those funds. So the plan was for Bob Michaels to put $100,000 into an endowment fund managed by the UCLA Foundation, and that Gene Block would match that, providing $200,000 in the fund, which would kick out about $10,000 every year, which would fund the award indefinitely. So that never happened. He never did that. So the fund does not exist. So basically now what that means is that because CSC surplus is restricted surplus, all of it goes towards the Sarvey Supplemental Award. And that award, frankly, just in relation to CSC's budget is nominal for us. It doesn't cost us a huge amount of money to do that portion of the award. And so therefore, we don't need our surplus to go into that award for perpetuity because we don't need that to be funded. So this discrepancy in the bylaws existed, and having known that, my next set of background is then with UCLA Wellness. So CSC receives a decent portion of its budget from the wellness referenda that was passed in 2016. The reason that CSC was originally included on that referenda, excuse me, and the purpose for the money on that referenda was for transportation. That was the main goal. That was why we were in there. That was what the students voted for, was for CSC to create a program that would either fund or assist or provide transportation for service orgs on campus. As I'm sure you've all heard my spiels before, transportation is by far the largest impediment to doing service, and is by far the largest cost as well. The 80 some orgs that apply to this Community Activities Committee annual application every year report an annual transportation cost of over $450,000. And that's before any other costs to their organization and for their service recipients. So that was the original purpose of the wellness money. And the plan was that, over the years after wellness was passed, that the commissioners would create a program that utilized that money and built it up. And that has kind of been, I guess, a long time coming in that sense. And the point where we're at now is that we are planning to, pending this change, to create a fund that funds solely transportation for service orgs. The main purpose of that really is that CSE annual, which is really the lifeblood of service on campus. It's a funding body that provides the cap is $10,000 for organizational purposes. A lot of service orgs have a majority of that, if not all of that. I know multiple orgs that have all of that funding that goes towards transportation and then leaves them scrapping for literally everything else that they need funding for. So the goal, and that cap hasn't been raised in decades. So the kind of goal of this fund is, and this is not just for CSC groups, this is for all UCLA service orgs, that they would have the opportunity to get a lot, if not hopefully all, depending on how things shape out, essentially, of their transportation funding from our fund, so they could use CAC annual then to fund everything else of their regular organizational operational needs and really increase the capacity of service orgs and really address that issue of transportation for service. So the bylaw change then is shifting it to taking out this split between an endowment fund that doesn't exist and a fund that doesn't need money, and instead moving those funds to this fund to use for its intended purpose from the wellness referenda, and really to support one of CSC's largest initiatives.
Thank you, Jonathan. Are there any questions about the bylaw change? Orion, I see your hand's raised.
Yeah. So, what did so Robert Michaels is the guy that didn't provide the fund. So, like, what happened there, and how does he feel about this change?
So Bob Michaels, he did not. He, from my understanding, has trust issues with the UCLA endowment, and so he he didn't want to create. He didn't want this to happen in the first place, essentially. He has since then been funding the award on an annual basis. And also Vice Chancellor Gordon's office has assisted in funding that award as well. And so I just actually got an email from him today in regards. We're still moving forward as normal. This was something that hasn't really been on his radar for multiple years now.
Okay, so he's been funding it himself then, just like
he's been writing every year.
Okay, and is CSC money going there at all currently?
Not currently.
Okay, so it's like so CSC is.
I'm sorry, you muted yourself.
Wait, so wait, what is currently happening with the CSC money then?
It goes into the SARVI award, which is what we do fund.
Okay, and that one is not needed because
it's not the fund. The award is needed, but the funding for it isn't. It's a relatively small amount of money in terms of CSC's budget, and so it's not something that we have an issue with just covering off the top. We don't need our surplus to go towards it every year.
And that's just because like few people applied to it, or?
No, we actually had more than triple the number of applications this year than we've had in the past. We got a really good response from it this year. The part of that is just that we don't. The award is $250 for 10 organizations, so it's just not a huge amount of money. That is like, it's just not a huge amount of money. Yeah.
Oh, so has the amount of money that's been going in there been building up then?
Correct. So it doesn't need any more money.
Okay, so it basically has a big surplus going on from like the past however many years.
Correct.
Would that eventually run out though if you stopped funding it?
Sure, it could, but like I said, CSC's budget, because it's such a small expense, it's not something that we would have a problem with covering just off the top from our regular budget.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions for Jonathan?
Oh, and would it be possible just to add the money instead of to a separate fund, just to increase the existing CSC the quarterly fund?
The supplemental fund for service.
Is that the one that you said was quarterly and has the 10K cap?
CAC annual. So that's not quarterly, it's an annual application. It's $10,000 once. I have no control over that budget. It's a separate independent committee that has USAC appointments to it. It is one of my like personal goals to advocate that should change. But at the same time, I'm not their capacity to provide, if they were to raise it, I don't know how much they would raise it by. We have this money. This money was given to us for the specific purpose, and we can't transfer that money to them. So this is our way of utilizing that money. That's why it would be a separate fund, is because we get this money for that specific purpose of using it for transportation.
Okay.
Okay. Other questions for Jonathan? Okay. Jonathan, are you okay with us moving forward if someone wants to motion?
Yeah, if you want to CRC's recommendation.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. You're right. And you're on CRC. Can we get CRC's recommendation? Isabel, hi. I apologize.
Hello, it's okay. CRC recommended 300. Jonathan gave like a very, very good explanation tonight and on Monday when we discussed it, or yesterday when we discussed it. And I don't see any reason why the fund for transportation shouldn't be created, considering, like he said, most of the funding that they get from the CAC annual is for transportation.
Okay. Jonathan / Lalo, your all's Jonathan, did you abstain?
No, I don't have any personal financial benefit.
Yeah, you don't need to. Yeah, you don't need to. I'm just wondering. Okay. Go.
My vote was yes. I think something that this council, like when we did our our surplus thing, was that this council was really passionate about that money going back to student orgs, and this bylaw change makes it so that CSC surplus will always go back to student orgs, which I think is a big win in terms of our philosophy in that sense.
Lalo?
Yeah, I also voted yes because Jonathan described it all perfectly, all made sense, and like he said, it goes all back to student org, so it's a complete win in my book.
Okay. Oh, Ryan, I see your hands raised.
Oh, just wanted a clarification. What was what is that acronym? The annual fund?
CAC, the Community Activities Committee.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Okay. With that in mind, also I realized my question was dumb, Jonathan, because Isabel said the vote and then I asked if you abstained. So I acknowledge that was a dumb question before someone jokes about it. We are moving on to a vote then. Does someone want a motion?
Motion to approve the bylaw change for CSC Transportation Fund.
Yep. Okay. Okay. I heard Brandon seconded. So everybody, can you raise your hands if you're voting in favor? Okay, virtually raise your hand if you're. Jonathan's doing both. I appreciate it. Okay, John is clapping. Okay, did everybody have their hands raised? I'm counting now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, 10. I'm gonna count one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, 10. Okay. By a motion of 10 to 0, the motion passes and the CSC Transportation Fund bylaw change is approved. Thank you, Jonathan. Yay. Okay, we're going to move on to our discussion item, which is continuing academic challenges throughout COVID-19. So I believe this is what you brought up earlier, Brandon. Thank you for being willing to put it all together. I'll hand it off to you.
Thank you, Robert. So I was talking with a few students today. This also went on UCLA, I think, meme page or one of them, but I got the full email from the math department, which basically like sort of passive aggressively told, well, not even passive aggressively, in all caps and bold, told every student, math student at UCLA, that all courses used towards the pre-major, major, and minor requirement must be for a letter grade. That they are basically ignoring the UCLA policy. That they are, what else are they saying? They are also, they literally they laid out the entire requirement, and the minimum requirement to to enroll in a 199 series is still an A, which quite honestly is I guess under normal circumstances, the math department can do what they want. Under COVID-19 circumstances, it's particularly inequitable. And they basically just finish it off by, in my opinion, mocking students and saying many resources and opportunities that were available to you before the self-quarantine is available now. In fact, there are more resources available due to social distancing, from short-term loans to scholarships to basic needs or food, tips on remote learning and staying on track. Research is still continuing remotely. Reader applications will be available as usual. There are many more opportunities as well, which will be available on our website. Wishing you all good health and good luck on your midterms. Basically, I'm very, very concerned that if we need to do something more aggressive with some of these lagging departments, because at this point it's, at least I'm not even a math student, but hearing people come to me about this, it's to me it's very sad, and it's so unacceptable. It's really terrible.
Yeah, I agree. Other people's thoughts on it?
Can I speak?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I would say within the conversations that we have, we really have been really aggressive, and I think that's why we've seen a lot of departments switch their requirements, and a lot of departments have laxed a lot of their, for example, variety of departments went pass no pass, but we are still really seeing struggles across different departments as well. And again, I'm going to echo what I said 1 or 2 weeks ago at council. If you know of these departments, the letters that we've been writing to the deans and to the different academic departments have been very effective. And we can do another one tailored to a specific department and send it to the chair and all the faculty that are voting members within that department as well. And that's also something that was recommended to us by a few of the deans, and specifically Dean Turner. I think everyone everywhere, this is something I brought up at every academic senate meeting that all of my senators are vehemently bringing up. And the academic senate and administration is fully aware. Every single one of the deans that we spoke to is on the same page as us. They want laxed requirements. They want compassion. It's just really up to the individual faculty who have an extreme amount of academic freedom. So again, I think we can strategize in specific ways for specific departments. And I know Robert and I had asked which departments that y'all know of that we still need to organize around. So if you all want to create a working group or a working group chat where we can talk about this specifically for people who've been getting a lot of these concerns, that would be great too. I don't think the council one would be the most productive because we talk about a lot of stuff there too. So we can create a separate one, but again, we just have to, continue to put pressure on certain things as well. And I do know that we had brought up discussions about requirements. I think it was, you had mentioned the math department, and I think that that was a department that we had touched upon too, that Dean Turner had let us know that, you know, they're really, that's a really tough department to persuade, because for them, they see something like that math lab that you had described as like the gateway class, and that class determines so much of a student's future. And whether or not we like agree or disagree, I personally disagree. I think it's inequitable, like even before COVID-19. But yeah, that's what they're like organizing around, and I do think that we need student testimonials from those specific departments as well. Like it can't just be council being like, pass no pass for the math students, and like none of us are math majors.
Could I see Arsh's hand and then Brandon?
Hi. Yeah. I just want to echo everything that Brandon said. And actually, thank you, Brandon, for bringing that up. It is quite an important issue, and I've engaged in conversations with a lot of other individuals myself who have been under extreme strain because of the stringent measures of the maths department. And like, I just want to echo the only being a student in the math department, the only, I guess, leeway they've provided us is giving 24 hours for midterms and finals, which I do credit them for it, but I guess is the bare minimum. And something that I was meaning to follow up with, I guess, with Robert or Naomi at a later point after the council, but I think given the discussion at hand, it would be a good point to bring up is Matthew, Richard, and I were deliberating upon the idea of possibly releasing a Google form collecting student testimonials about different departments and other, I guess, academic distresses they've been facing, and that can pertain to anything ranging from, I guess, departments not changing the requirements from letter grade to PNP, or I'm sure a lot of you must have seen on UCLA Secrets as well. Some professors have been more strict with the timings for their midterms and their deducting points for students even being 5 minutes late, which is blasphemous at a time like this. I don't know what to say about that, but just getting that form out. But I realized that something like this might have already been done in the past couple of weeks. So just to make sure that it's not redundant, I wanted to run it by you all. And if the council feels that it can be worthwhile, I would be happy to, I guess, work on it and make sure that, it gets out, or just design it.
Yeah, thank you, Arsh. Brandon, and then I'm going to talk.
Yeah, Naomi, I didn't mean to imply, of course, this wasn't meant to be a criticism of council. I agree 100%. Like, I've tried to be part of the conversation myself, and you've done an incredible job, and Robert has done an incredible job, and Lalo, and really anybody on council who's been involved with this over the past few weeks to, over a month now. But the only reason I was bringing this up is because I felt it needed. I think a working group is a great idea. I think it's like, I just think it needed renewed attention because of like just some of the complaints I was receiving personally, not because like of councils and like it wasn't meant to be like that sort of thing. But I'm happy to like move forward on that as well.
Yeah, I actually didn't take it as like offensive or anything. I just wanted to reiterate a lot of what I was saying, because I feel like things get lost in officer reports, and I like had mentioned that a few weeks ago. So yeah, I agree, and I just am creating the group chat right now too. So I'm adding the people who like originally wrote the letters to the academic deans and stuff, but if y'all want to join, just let me know as well.
Thank you.
I see John's hand real quick. The one thing I would say is, Naomi, just to echo what we've talked about, I think sending, and what Dean Turner also mentioned, was sending letters to the departments. She said like not to underestimate our voice in this in terms of like council sending specific departmental letters. Maybe, and I know we've discussed this, like having what I think within this work group, sending like a, not generic, but a letter that's like, we've identified your department as a department where students are voicing their concerns. I wonder if that's like a good idea. Like I know Spanish is one that I've heard a lot about, and I've even witnessed firsthand just that it seems like they're using it in the syllabus in the syllabi to become more difficult, not less difficult, and then like requiring videos to be on, like not being late at all, like things like that that are clearly promoting inequity, and that also making it more difficult during this time. Like Brandon, going to what you were saying, the math department sentiment, like that, you know, there's more resources available now. I mean, no matter, I agree with you and Naomi saying we can't go in and dictate what the math department does, but to some degree, like obviously that's problematic. Obviously that's not addressing the inequities that exist for students within that department, and I think it should be addressed. So that's all I have to say. Johanna?
I don't think this had anything to do with what Brandon was talking about, but I wanted to talk about the email that Chancellor Block sent out. I don't know if we talked about this already, but students were concerned about like how fall quarter is coming along. I missed Naomi's report, so I don't know if there were updates about that. But just moving forward, like I think I'd like to know like if there's any updates or like just other information that council has on like what administration is looking for right now. I think I can assume that the opening of campus is still up to like the larger government, but I'm still like just wanted to know more about like how the decision making process is moving along for fall.
Yeah, Naomi, I don't know if you want to chime in, but just to be clear, I did not know that email was coming out either. Actually, I actually mentioned with the chancellor yesterday, I directly asked him about fall quarter. He said, I don't know. So I was surprised to receive. I literally directly asked him. I said, I've heard there's been talks about there being an optional module available for students to go online who can't make it back or who don't feel comfortable making it back. He's like, we'll see. So like, I'm just as surprised as you are, Joanna, and asking the exact same questions.
Okay. I mean, I did know that the communication was going out. I just didn't know like when it was going to come out. And again, like the details of it, we weren't entirely sure. I think Chancellor Block has been really trying to work with the working group that he established and really allowing the folks on the working group who are like experts in the field and who are just like really knowledgeable about different things, like not make the decision, but advise him on the decision that he and Executive Vice Chancellor Emily Carter put out. So when we're thinking about the fall, a lot of things are up in the air. Like I feel like I can briefly talk about what we've been talking about within the committee, but for example, like we were putting together possible scenarios, and we talked about what it would look like for an online module for students to be able to come back, or for some students to be able to come back, and then others who can't still have access to online, which is something that Berkeley kind of hinted at. If you really read Berkeley's not Bruin posts, what are they called? Bear posts? I don't know. If you read their Bear posts, it doesn't really say like we are going to be online in the fall. It's saying we are likely moving towards online in the fall. And UCLA is kind of doing a lot of the same. There is no final decision yet. That's why like a lot of it is very ambiguous. But again, like I think it's really important, and what I've been really vocal about within the working group as well, is that it's important to understand the ramifications of each scenario that's put in place. So if you have something like some students can come back and not others, we have to think about who has the privilege and the ability to come back and to focus and to be on campus, and who can't come, who physically can't come back, who financially can't come back. So I feel like that's really important, and that's something that the working group is really thinking about. And like I said, it's a really fluid situation, so things come out, but we meet every Monday, and I will ask how much I can give, like how much information I can give out too. I also don't want them to be like, we can't trust students, like students are like freaking each other out. I'm really big on only speaking when I'm speaking about like things that I know what I'm talking about. and being like very honest and transparent. So I will try to see what all I can bring back to council. But I do, in my officer report, I did give an update on what's going on within the committee. Again, they're also following a lot of the guidelines that the state puts out or that the city puts out. So if Governor Gavin Newsom's like, no, you guys can't come back till January, UCLA can just be like, well, we're coming back in fall. Like there are specific things that are put in place as well. So UCLA is being very cognizant of like what Berkeley's doing, what the governor's saying, what Mayor Eric Garcetti is saying. And yeah, if that answers, I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, I think, well, I think it'll be sad to know that we won't be getting any more updates after a certain point in this quarter, like personally. So I think we should also talk next week about like what kind of like expectations we have for future council members to kind of continue the kind of communication that we've had and like the strategies that we've had. So I think we should prepare that for sure, because this is like coming up and I wouldn't want council members to feel like scared to talk to administration. So I think that's something we can talk about, and like if whatever updates we have, if there's any for next week, I think that would be helpful. But I think we could also just talk about like for next council what kind of things we want them to be thinking about, or if not doing.
Yeah, I would also just say too, something I've been like really vocal about within the committee too is sending timely like notifications to students. We talked about how really untimely it was to receive a notification like finals week, week 10, randomly, the way that they sent it, like nobody knew it was coming. And we've talked a lot about that too. So if a decision was to be made, I do think that they would send it out at a time that wouldn't be extremely disruptive for students.
Yeah, if I could just add on to that. So Jonna, just so I'm transparent too about Naomi's role and everything. So there's an undergrad rep, and they have reached out to me and they said, who's someone that you can, they first asked me and then I said, I can't, or I'm unable to because I'm graduating. So Naomi's term sitting on this committee extends into the summer and extends after this council's done, unless she opts into diverting back to council and wanting them to pick someone else. So Naomi will be unless she decides otherwise, consistent voice throughout the rest of the quarter and into the summer regarding this. And that's because of her status as AAC and then being a third year too. Obviously, if the council has a strong opposition, the new council to Naomi's role on the task force, they can address that. But when they originally reached out to us, the intention was for us to stay on throughout the summer. So I just want to make that clear too, is Naomi, it's something that will be at your discretion ultimately. Okay, any other thoughts? Sorry, Brandon, I know we got somewhat diverted from your conversation. Do you feel like it was adequately addressed and that we have a game plan moving forward? Or
yes, I'm happy that the working group's been created, and I'm happy we're going to move forward on this. So thank you, everyone.
Okay, great. If there's no other comments about that, are there any other comments before we adjourn from council members? Okay, then we will be adjourning at, let me do my math, 9:48 p.m. Pacific time.